stretch of land just outside of Plainfield, Illinois, that no one mowed, even when summer turned the rest of the county into something out of a John Deere commercial. Locals called it the Gallagher Patch. Not because the Gallaghers still owned it, they moved out in '94, but because no one else had the stomach to take it. It was just a few acres, flat, open, bounded by a rusted wire fence that no one ever fixed. From the road, it looked like any other field in Will County. But people said the soil was off. Siggy said you could dig 4 feet down and still never find a single worm. Said if you stood there long enough, you'd get that feeling, like you just walked into a room you shouldn't be in. Sheriff's Deputy Mike Halpern had never believed in any of that. He was a grounded man, 43, divorced twice. No time for fairy tales. He'd seen too much dumb human cruelty to waste time being scared of dirt. But when the call came in about teenagers hearing voices out there again, he rolled his eyes and grabbed his jacket. "Better you than me," the dispatcher joked as he signed out. Mike gave her a tired smile. "It's just grass and beer cans. I'll be back in 20. Gallagher Patch was 10 minutes south of town, where the road narrowed and the corn got taller. When Mike pulled up in his cruiser, kids still parked at the edge, beat-up Chevy with Indiana plates, doors open, headlights off, no music, no voices, just the wind moving the long grass like breath. He stepped out, boots crunching gravel, and called sheriff's office. "Anyone out here?" Silence. He moved toward the field, flashlight in one hand, the other resting near his sidearm, not because he expected trouble, but because muscle memory doesn't care about expectations. Halfway to the center, he found a phone lying in the weeds. Screen cracked. Camera still recording. He hit play. The video showed 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, laughing as they stumbled into the patch. One of them narrating in a bad horror movie voice. Local legend says this field was cursed after a family vanished in 1972. Another voice. "Shut up, man. Don't say stuff like that." Then static. Kinky. Then a high-pitched tone, loud, mechanical, dissonant. Then something else. Not a scream. Worse. Breathing. Fast, wet, animal breathing. Mike turned in a slow circle. No kids. No tracks. No laughter. Just the long grass, sighing. He should have called it in, but something about the moment held him. A prickling in his spine, like he was being watched by someone too far away to see, but close enough to feel. Then he heard it. A voice, right behind him. A whisper, dry and familiar. "Mike, Kun." He turned. No one. But the flashlight dimmed. And in the far corner of the field just past where the grass grew tall, thought he saw a hand reaching up from the soil, fingers twitching like it was trying to remember how to move. Mike didn't remember walking back to his cruiser. One moment. he was staring at that twitching hand. The next, he was gripping the steering wheel, windshield fogged from the inside, heart hammering so loud it muffled the rest of the world. He hadn't drawn his weapon. He hadn't radioed it in. He hadn't done anything. And the flashlight, still dim, was resting on the passenger seat, even though he didn't remember setting it down. The field was quiet again. Too quiet. Not peaceful. Vacuumed. Like sound had been sucked out of the landscape. No bugs. No breeze. Not even the ticking of the engine as it cooled. He started the car and drove. Didn't speed, didn't panic, but he also didn't look in the rearview mirror. Back at the station, he sat in the lot for 15 minutes before going inside. The dispatcher looked up. Everything good. Mike nodded. Too fast. Kids were gone. Just prank stuff. She frowned. You sure? We gotta ping off one of their phones just before you got there. They were still in the area. He forced a shrug. Guess they left quick. Want me to log it? He hesitated. Then, nah. I'll handle the report tomorrow. He didn't. The next morning, he told himself it was stress. He'd been running low on sleep, drinking too much diner coffee. No mystery, no monster, just an overactive imagination in a place with a bad reputation. But that night, the phone rang at 3:14 a.m. Only his ex-wife had that number. And she hadn't called in 5 years. He answered. First, there was nothing, just static. Then a voice, garbled, distant. Mike, you forgot something. Click. He sat awake until dawn. That day, he skipped patrol. Spent most of the morning watching the field from a distance with binoculars. Parked behind a line of oaks, off County Road 9. Nothing moved. Not even the grass. But the weird thing was this. His radio kept flicking on, by itself. No chatter, no dispatch, just white noise, followed by a soft, wet sigh. Like someone just beneath the surface was exhaling through dirt. He shut the radio off. It turned back on. He yanked the battery. It still hissed. That was the moment he stopped pretending it was nothing. The next night, Mike dreamed about the field. He was standing at the edge of it again, only this time, the grass was gone. Just bare dirt, stretching for miles under a yellow-gray sky. In the center of the earth was a dorsaled oak with rusted iron hinges and no handle. Something was knocking from below. He woke up, drenched in sweat. The digital clock blinked 3:14 a.m. Same as the call. Same as the voice. He didn't go back to sleep. Instead, he sat at the kitchen table, staring at the old Polaroids pinned to his corkboard. Pictures from years on the job. 4th of July parades, lost dogs, busted mailboxes, drunk uncles, and bored teens. Normal things. Harmless things. And then he noticed a new photo. One he didn't remember taking. At first glance, It was just a picture of the Gallagher patch grainy, washed out like an old trail cam shot. But, in the corner, just barely visible near the tree line, was a face. Not a full face. Pew. Just the eyes and mouth emerging from the dark. Grinning. He pulled the photo down and checked the back. No markings. No date. He searched the drawer for the others juiced to make charade. When he pulled them out, his breath caught. The face was in those two different positions, farther back. Hiding, but always there. Watching. He shoved the pictures back, locked the drawer, and drove into town. At the diner, he sat in the far booth and drank coffee until it was cold. Bonnie, the waitress, poured him a fresh cup without asking. "You look like Halpern. Halpern, I feel worse. Still chasing those kids out near the patch." He looked up. "Shh." "Yes, you did. You asked about the patch." She shook her head slowly. "Mike, I haven't said a word since I brought your coffee." He stared at her. The coffee pot trembled just slightly in her hand. "You okay?" she asked. Before he could answer, a shrill scream cut through the diner. A woman from the next booth dropped her phone. Mike moved fast. "What happened?" The woman pointed at her screen, glitched. "I was scrolling, and there was a face." Just a face. And Mike picked up the phone. It was open to a social media feed. All normal. But for half a second he saw it. A mouth. Too wide. Too still. Grinning at him. Mike started noticing them the next day. Dead spots. Places where things didn't quite work. His phone wouldn't hold a signal within 10 feet of his living room window. The kitchen clock froze at 3:14 a.m., no matter how many times he reset it. Light bulbs dimmed when he walked under them, then flickered back the moment he left. At first, he blamed the wiring, then the power company, then stress, but deep down, he knew it was spreading. Whatever lived out there in the Gallagher patch had followed him back. Not physically. Not like a stray dog or a curse in a movie. It followed like a mold. Quiet. Patient. It settled into the corners of his life and began to rot things from underneath. The next missing person case came 2 days later. A 65-year-old man named Ellis Barrow, last seen walking his dog along the outer edge of town. The dog came back, covered in dirt. shaking like it had been beaten. Mike volunteered to take the report. Not because he wanted to, 'cause he knew. Because he knew where to look. He drove the back roads with the windows down, eyes scanning the tree lines for something. He didn't know what. He passed Gallagher Patch twice before finally stopping. There were no cars, no tire tracks, just wind moving through the field like fingers. He got out, fence, listened. Then he heard it again. Not the voice this time. Something else. Footsteps. Not coming toward him, mirroring him. Every step he took, they took. He turned sharply. Nothing there. The field looked empty. Sound. But the sound kept going like something invisible was walking in parallel, just beneath the surface. He stepped back. It stepped forward. Closer now. The rhythm was off. Bunk. Like it didn't understand how people moved. Like it was learning, limb by limb. He ran to the cruiser and slammed the door. The radio kicked on. No static this time. Just one sound. Wet breathing. And a voice. Calm. Flat. We're all just shadows waiting for the body. Mike didn't sleep anymore. He tried. God knows he tried. But the moment he closed his eyes, the door returned. That same wooden door in the dirt, always locked from the other side. Always knocking. He'd wake up gasping, heart slamming, hands twitching like they were digging through earth that wasn't there. Key. Stopped shaving, stopped answering texts from his brother and Joliet. He even stopped going to the diner. Bonnie left him a message once. You okay, Halpern? You're scaring folks. But fear wasn't new. It was just visible now. And then came the boy. 10 years old. Nate Pomeroy. Walked out of his house in his pajamas just after midnight. Never came back. His parents swore they only turned their backs for a second. Search teams went up within the hour. Dogs, drones, everything. Nothing. No footprints. No trail. No one even heard a door open. Mike didn't wait for permission. He went straight to Gallagher Patch. This time, he went in. Not the edge. Not the path. All the way in. The grass swallowed him like water, whispering against his jacket. Cold, even in the summer heat. Every few steps, he'd feel the ground dip slightly, like something soft was just under the surface, and then he saw it. A small impression in the dirt, child-sized, like someone had laid down and vanished. Next to it, a toy, a rubber action figure, covered in dirt. Mike picked it up. It was warm, still warm, turned. He turned it over and saw something carved crudely into the plastic with what looked like fingernails. I'm not gone, I'm just under. He dropped it and ran. Didn't stop until he reached the cruiser. Didn't speak a word to anyone, but when he got home, he sat at his kitchen table and started drawing. Not sketching. Drawing from memory, cummy. He didn't know where it was coming from, only that he had to get it out. Lines, circles, angles, that didn't belong in Euclidean space. By the time he looked up, it was morning, and every sheet of paper on his kitchen floor was filled with symbols. One phrase, repeating in red ink though. He only owned black pens. The body remembers what the mind denies. Bung. It wasn't just Mike who noticed the town changing. It was everyone. But no one wanted to say it out loud. Not when people started forgetting things. Not just little things, keys, dates, where they parked, names, faces, whole people. Old man Greeley ran the hardware store for 23 years. One morning, the store was closed, the lights off, the shelves bare. P. Stood out front, puzzled. Didn't there used to be a guy here? What guy? Mike knew. He remembered Greeley's laugh like gravel in a coffee can. He remembered how the man used to keep a flask in the paint aisle, labeled turpentine. But his name wasn't in the town records anymore, and no one in the county office remembered hiring him. Same thing with Nate Pomeroy, the missing boy. 2 weeks gone, and people already spoke of him like he was a rumor. Wasn't he that Henderson kid? No. I think you're mixing him up with someone else. Even his mother stopped posting flyers, stopped answering her door, like something had scrubbed her memory. Mike drove out to her house, knocked 3 times. She opened the door just a crack. Her eyes were red, tired. "Ma'am," he said carefully. "I'm just checking in." "Bow, Nate." She stared blankly. "Nate, your son." Her brow furrowed, lips parting slightly. Then she smiled too quickly. "I think you've got the wrong address, deputy." And she closed the door. No lock, no click. Just silence. Mike stood there a long time. Then he walked around to the side of the house, gunned. Looked through the window into Nate's bedroom. The furniture was gone, stripped bare, as if the room had never belonged to anyone. That night, Mike drove to the edge of Gallagher Patch with a shovel and a box of files. Inside the box, his notes, the drawings, copies of the Polaroids, and the rubber action figure from the field. He got out, walked 20 feet into the grass, started to dig. The soil was soft, too soft. It opened like it had been waiting. He buried the box and covered it with care, smoothed the earth, marked it with nothing cut. As he stood, he felt something shift beneath his feet. Not the dirt, not even the field, the world. Like reality had hiccuped, just a little caw. And when he looked up, he realized the sky had changed. It was darker than it should have been. And there were no stars. Mike stopped wearing his badge. It wasn't a decision, Peth. It just started happening. One morning, it wasn't in its usual spot. Then his sidearm went missing. His cruiser stopped starting. The key didn't even fit the ignition anymore. Like the job was leaving him. Like it never belonged to him in the first place. He walked through town like a ghost. People nodded at him, some even smiled, but there was a delay in their eyes, like they were trying to place a name they'd already forgotten. At the gas station, the attendant called him Sir Tyner. Bonnie served him coffee without comment, then walked away before he could speak. The photos on his phone began to disappear. Boom, not all at once. One by one. Each day, fewer memories remained. Then the contact names went blank. Just numbers. Then those numbers vanished too. By the end of the week, only one photo was left. It showed the Gallagher patch. Overcast sky. A blurry figure walking into the grass. He zoomed in. It was him. One night, he caught his reflection blinking out of sync. Tet. Just for a second, he stood in the bathroom, staring into the mirror, unmoving. Then his reflection blinked, and he didn't. He smashed the mirror with his elbow and slept on the couch with every light on. That same night, he got another call. 3:14 a.m. No caller ID, he answered, hand trembling. The voice was clearer this time. Still wrong, still wet, but clearer. You're almost ready now. He didn't respond, didn't hang up either. You buried it. But the field remembers. It always remembers. Then the line went dead. No click. Just a long, slow breath. As if someone or something was still listening. The next day, Mike went back to the field one last time. No flashlight. No gun. Just a notebook and a pen. He walked into the grass and sat down right over the spot where he deburied the box. He opened the notebook and began to write. Not a confession. Not a report. Just what he remembered. Because that's what it wanted. To be remembered. To be put on paper. To spread. When he finished, he closed the book and stood up. But he didn't walk away. Instead, he said one word aloud. Not in English. Not in any language he knew. And the field answered. After that day in the field, Mike changed. Not overnight, but enough that even strangers noticed. He walked slower, spoke quieter, looked people in the eye, like he was listening for something behind their words, like he was waiting to hear it again. Whatever it was. The department sent a counselor, a guy from Springfield with too much cologne and not enough patience. Mike didn't say a word during the session. At the end, the man gave him a card and said, "Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who doesn't know you." Mike looked up, smiled faintly. "But it knows me now." The counselor didn't come back. 3 days later, someone knocked on Mike's door at exactly 3:14 a.m. No footsteps leading up. No car in the driveway. Just the knock. Slow. Precise. Like someone tapping the same rhythm over and over, trying to teach it to the house. He didn't answer. Didn't need to. He knew that kind of knock. He'd heard it before. Dreams. The knock stopped eventually, but the damage didn't. By morning, the walls in his house felt thinner. The corners looked deeper. He caught himself turning sideways in the hallway, like the space between rooms had narrowed by an inch or two. When he walked into the kitchen, the floor groaned, like something underneath was shifting. He stared down at the wood, listened, and for the first time, he realized it wasn't just groaning. It was breathing. He started seeing people he didn't recognize. Not strangers. Exactly. They wore familiar faces, neighbors, old co-workers, even Bonnie at the diner. But something behind their eyes was vacant. They smiled too wide, laughed too hard, used the wrong phrases. Bonnie once said, "Ain't the corn sweet this year?" when they were out of season. Another man on Main Street waved and called him officer even though he was in tea and uniform. A kid stared at him for 3 full minutes at the gas station, then whispered, "You're the one they let through." Mike stopped going into town, started boarding up the windows. Not because he thought it would help, because it felt polite, like locking the door before something familiar came in. Mike stayed inside for days, didn't check the mail. Gunga. Didn't answer the phone, didn't eat much, either. There was a smell now. Not in the house, in the air. Faint, but constant. Like wet copper and something older, like a forgotten room finally opened. The boards on the windows helped for a while. At night, they creaked, expanding with the house, groaning like ribs that remembered breath. And the knocking came back. Always at 3:14. Always 3 knocks. Then silence. Then breathing. Then the sound of the door unlocking from the other side of in. Though there was no keyhole, he made the mistake of going outside on the 5th day. Just to the porch. Just for air. The sky was wrong. Too still. Clouds didn't move. There were no birds, no planes. Even the breeze had stopped pretending to be real. Town. And the town looked different. Not visibly. Not in a way you could point at. It just felt ... flattened. As if someone had painted a perfect replica over a dying version. Like the backdrop of a stage. He saw Bonnie across the street. She was standing too still, smiling too wide. Her lips didn't move, but he heard her voice anyway. "We're almost ready for you." She lifted one hand and waved. The gesture was slow, almost mechanical, like she was underwater. Tent. Then she walked away, vanishing behind the old pharmacy that had been closed since 2009. But the door opened for her. A door that hadn't existed. That night, he dreamed again. Not the door. This time, it was the house. His house. But it was upside down. Inverted. The furniture floated above. The windows looked out into dirt. And in the middle of the living room, a table. On it, his notebook. And around it, the things that wore people. Watching him, silent. One leaned forward and whispered, only one word. Bleed. He woke up, gagging, mouth full of dirt. The next morning, the floorboards in his living room buckled, spooja, just slightly, too. Just once. But enough to let him see what was underneath. Crack. A space. And inside, not pipes, not earth, but a hand, reaching up, palm open, waiting. Mike didn't call for help. He didn't board the crack. Didn't even try to cover it. What would be the point? Help from where? He just stared at the hand in the floor, fingers curled slightly upward, as if inviting him. It didn't move, but he knew it was alive. He could feel the pulse not in the wood, but in himself. Like his heart had started sinking to a beat that wasn't his. How? He left the house that night. No keys, no flashlight, just his notebook. He walked through the center of town. No one stopped him. No one saw him. And every window he passed, empty, dark. Even the streetlights gave no warmth. Their glow was wrong like memory, not light, cur. He reached the Gallagher patch just before dawn. It wasn't the same. The fence was gone. The grass was shorter, but thicker, dense, matted. It felt more like hair than plant. In the center of the field was a shape, a mound. He walked to it. No hesitation. Ground here was soft. Breathing, he knelt and placed the notebook down. Opened it. Every page was now filled with writing he didn't remember, diagrams, names, words he couldn't pronounce. One phrase repeated. It comes through what we forget. He turned. The last page, it was blank, except for one line written in a child's handwriting. You have to lay down now. He folded the notebook and set it on the mound, then lay down beside it. The sun never rose that day. Not fully, It hovered behind thick gray clouds, leaking a colorless light that felt more like dusk than morning. A hiker passed the field 2 days later and noticed something strange. In the center of the grass, something had been pressed flat, man-shaped, but too long, too thin, too deep. Like someone had lain there for days, or like something had climbed up from underneath. They found the notebook 2 weeks later. Couple of kids cutting through the Gallagher patch to avoid the highway. It was dry, unmarked by rain. No mud on the cover. Just resting there, like someone had placed it on a nightstand before bed. Deputies brought it in, flipped through it. Blank. Every page. One sentence, handwritten in faint red ink. I am not the one who walked in. They logged it as evidence, filed it under miscellaneous. After a month, it was gone. No record of removal, just a space where it had been, like it had never existed. People in Plainfield talk about the field less these days, not because they forgot, because forgetting is safer, a kind of unspoken deal. Don't name it, and it won't notice you, but now and then, someone new comes to town, cuckoo, and they ask, they always ask, why doesn't anyone build on that land? The answer's always the same. A shrug, a laugh, a joke, but no one ever builds. One night, a trucker pulled off Route 30 and parked near the fence to rest. See? We woke up just before 3 o'clock to a voice whispering outside his window. Can you help me? Tayo under here. He didn't look. Just started the engine, And as he drove off, he saw something in his side mirror. Not a person. A shape, crawling out of the grass, standing tall, head tilted too far to the side, waving. Not at him. At his reflection.